So now we're going to look at actually building some XML with PHP. And I've already created a file to do that for us. Let me preface this a little bit by saying this isn't as complex as it looks. Most of this is just here for styling. XML by default is not really meant to be viewable in a browser because browsers tend to hide tags and they don't allow for tabbing. They instead just use one space. So I created my own tab with 4 spaces in it, and I'm using that variable. And HTML special characters just allows me to display name instead of the browser normally hiding it. So basically, as far as the code goes, you can ignore all the HTML special characters, tabs, and breaks. The rest of it is what actually constructs our XML. So let's get to what it does. First, we have 2 arrays, an array of bookstores, and then a second array called books, and each book has a subject, a title, and an author. I know the names here aren't terribly original, but they'll serve their purpose of keeping them distinct for us. Now, we go down here and we create a for each. We're going to loop through that array just like we did on a lot of our other arrays in our lesson. But this time we're going to use the HTML value which we created up here and say HTML.equals. Dot equals is something we haven't actually talked about yet. Instead of assigning a value to HTML like we did here, this is going to append a value. It'll add whatever I put in there to whatever's already in HTML. It's a good way to build strings, and when you're building HTML with PHP, this is often how you do it. You do it one step at a time, just appending to the end in each function. So we create this, and we set our first value in here. Then we go through another for each, and we format all of our next bits of our array. Each title, info, author, it's all in here and just set to a specific value. So let's take a look at it. If we change this to index 3, you can see we now have some XML. It looks just like our example. We have bookstore, and then each bookstore has a name, subject, title, and author. And it goes through and keeps them all in line. And then the second bookstore has its own list of books. Each bit of information is wrapped by an associated tag. That's what makes it XML, and that's what will allow it to be easily used by whatever we send this information to. Speaking of sending the information, now we're going to go through how to read XML with JavaScript. So we're going to go back into our code, and I've cleaned it up a bit. We no longer need to view it through the browser, so I've removed all the formatting, and it's still building the same XML, but now it's doing it for us to use within our program. As you can tell, it looks a lot simpler now. So what we're going to do is show you real quick what this actually looks like if I tried to print it out. This is what we get in a browser. That's why I had to add all that formatting stuff, because it isn't going to look like XML through a browser. But it is, and we're going to use it to show how to parse with JavaScript. So we're going to paste in some script right here that I've already written. And we have a p tag around all of our XML. We've just named it XML. And this allows us to get element by ID, just like we have before, XML. And we're assigning that to HTML val. Now, here's the new stuff. We have to create a DOM parser, and we're setting a variable equal to new DOM parser. That is one of the things that allows it to know that it's creating an XML versus creating something that's just a string or another type of object. Then we set XML doc equal to parser dot parse from string the HTML val that we set, and we're going to use text XML. It knows that this is text XML. It's pulling that out of this object, and it's going to assign it to XML. Now we have an object with our XML in it that we can access with JavaScript. And we're creating variables with getElement by tag name, and the tag within our XML was subject, title, and author. So we're getting one for subject, one for title, and one for author. You can use different numbers here to get the second or third values, but we're just showing how this works for now. And I've created 3 alerts for each of the 3 different values that we're pulling out of the XML. So when this is saved and we run it, let's run it from this page. Book 1 subject. That's our subject that we named from book 1. Next we'll get book 1 title and book 1 author. We successfully parsed the XML and got our values out of it with JavaScript. That concludes our lesson on web development. Thank you for watching the lessons. I hope you enjoyed them. And this and other lessons can be found at creativeonlineschool.com.